Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I am actually really excited to be here today at what is going to be my very first time speaking at a conference. So the first part of this year's conference's title is the myth. So let's talk about the Greek myth of Prometheus. Now, when we talk about this myth, we are speaking about a myth that has multiple versions and different interpretations as well. So the story of the myth briefly tells the tale of how Prometheus steals the fire from the gods and offers it to humans so that they can prosper, survive, and evolve. And so for doing that, the gods punish Prometheus by chaining him to a rock, where he will have his liver eaten each and every day for the rest of eternity. Now, I believe that in order to compare and contrast the myth with a contemporary novel, we first have to understand the myth and the different versions that we have. And so there are two main Greek authors that seem to develop the myth the furthest and actually present the two most prominent versions of the Titan. And so the first one of these Greek authors is Hesiod. Hesiod actually presents two different versions of the myth, and in his versions, Prometheus is viewed not only as a hero of humanity, even if he brings forth suffering for humans, but he's also understood as a defiant individual of God's supreme rule. And so Hesiod's versions seem to be tinted by a lens that gives the myth some kind of didactic dimension in which human suffering and the human condition is actually justified because of that very same stealing of the fire. Now, however, today I am more interested in speaking about Aeschylus' version of the myth in Prometheus Bound, because I believe that this one has had a deeper and wider influence on the general social framework, and also a deeper influence in how we understand the myth today. Now, in Aeschylus' version, the myth, the Titan doesn't have this kind of negative connotation that Hesiod's version did. In fact, he's seen as a martyr of Zeus's tyrannic rule. And so he somehow represents human repression when facing an oppressive future. So every time that humans find themselves struggling to evolve, to make progress and to survive, Prometheus stands as a figure of that struggle. As such, Aeschylus' image of the Titan has been widely used as a symbol of transgression, progress, and enlightenment. Now, to further explain this, let me just very briefly read through this quote by García Castillo that says, Aeschylus' Prometheus represents, through a grand and titanic expression, the human struggle to reach a free culture, to escape the dark ignorance, even at the cost of the naive happiness of the ignorant themselves. Now, I believe that by reading this quote, we may have a clearer image of what the myth actually stands for. Therefore, moving on to the second part of this year's conference's title, which is the art, let's have just a brief look at how the myth may have influenced some different works of art in different artistic mediums. So, of course, the myth has had a very deep influence in the arts, and there are countless interpretations of the myth in the arts. We can see this in paintings from different historical perspectives, using the myth as a symbol, also just straightforward representations of the myth, using the myth as anti-war propaganda. And then, of course, speaking of literature, we have to talk about the presence of the myth in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I believe that is maybe the instance in which the myth might be more easily recognizable. Then bringing this to a more contemporary or modern perspective, and also addressing the myth not only as a symbol of enlightenment, but also as the embodiment of the dangers that can come along with progress. We can see this maybe in the image of Robert Oppenheimer. Then, of course, getting even closer to American grounds, we can see in the Statue of Liberty some of the features connected to the myth, having the torch and the book as symbols of enlightenment, and of course the name of the statue being the Statue of Liberty, signaling that freedom and through progress and through knowledge and enlightenment. However, today I am more interested in seeing how the myth might be represented in Don DeLillo's 2007 novel Falling Man that I brought here today. And so let me very briefly read through the novel of Falling Man. So this is a novel that was published in the aftermath of 9/11, and it is regarded as one of the most prominent novels of 9/11 literature. In fact, it is featured in most academic journals and papers dealing with 9/11 literature and the traumatic effects of 9/11, and it addresses the profound effects of 9/11 not only in American society, but also in American identity. It actually signals at a very profound effect on the American sense of self in the aftermath of the events. Now, the main character of the novel is Keith Noideka, who is an upper middle class American who actually takes pride on his position as an American himself. And the picture that DeLillo draws in the novel is that of a disintegrated America after the events. The image of America that DeLillo draws really seems to portray a country that is disconnected from the past, that has been linked to that idea of progress, hegemony, and overall economic wealth and stance as an global authority. And so, in order to completely understand the novel, I think that it is important to bear in mind that in the novel, the US is used as a symbol of power and as a symbol of wealth. And so, in the novel, the country's ongoing interest in seeking progress, power, and dominance is what actually pushes the country into certain foreign policies that might then be deemed as oppressive in other parts of the world. Now, this then brings us to the second concept that I want to bear in mind, which is that of hamartia, the tragic flaw that brings a character to each downfall, eventually. In the novel, the country of the US, the fatal flaw of the country is that of its constant appetite for progress and its foreign policies. Now, having this in mind, let's see how the myth of Prometheus applies, or how it can be seen in the novel, through a case study of DeLillo's, of the novel's main character, Keith Noideka. Now, Keith's character does not only represent various of the characteristics of the Titan, of Prometheus, but he also seems to embody some of the negative outcomes that come along with those ideas of enlightenment and progress. And so the very first tragic flaw that Keith presents is that of his status as an American, as an established citizen in the country. And so his status and social recognition in the novel seem to be awarded to him for granted, and his wealth and heritage seem to separate him from the rest and make him stand out. This makes him powerful, influential, and enlightened. His elevated status then allows him to become an individual who doesn't need to depend on anything but his job, and this eventually actually makes him move away from his family, his son, his wife, and just focus on his very reduced group of friends, all of which seem to be in a very similar situation to his. And so then Keith, just like Prometheus, when the towers fall, he observes everything crumbling down to pieces. In the same way in which Prometheus failed at giving humans the fire, Keith also becomes a tragic hero due to his flaws. The fire represents progress, and progress allows humans to survive and evolve independently and being completely undisturbed. Development separates humans, and when the structures that allow for this disconnection fail, we have nowhere to stand. Now, therefore, I believe that we can somehow illustrate the development of these two characters in this following way. First, we have our two characters, Keith and Prometheus, both of which have or show an essential flaw. This flaw de-establishes the natural order of things, or simply breaks the rule. In Prometheus' case, he's sent to Tartarus, and on Keith's case, representing once again Americans, they see the wealth and the dominance crumbling down to pieces, of course, this being embodied or represented by the collapsing of the towers on 9/11. Now, to further extend this comparison, interestingly, Keith decides to retreat and spend his time in Las Vegas, trying to escape from any kind of traumatic influence that he experienced in the towers and focus solely on the game of poker, which allows him to disconnect from his traumatic experience. This retreat into emptiness, into the void, signals at a strong sense of alienation. So both characters lose any kind of contact with the outside world. They lose any kind of hope or expectation for what the future might bring. Now, as I said, Keith's character is a symbol for the whole unity of the country of the US, and so his reaction to the effects, or his traumatic reaction to the effects of 9/11, is a way to represent the whole of the country's state of mind. 9/11 being a moment filled with confusion, with questions, and with uncertainty. The novel, then, through the exploration of the reactions to 9/11, seems to draw some further similarities with the myth. And so September 11 became a pivotal point in the American way of life and in American identity, at least in the 21st century. It is a moment that has been, or that actually got imprinted into everyone's psyche, into everyone who saw the events, or who was, even if you were 1 year old, as I was when this happened, you've got the image of the planes crashing into the towers very vividly present in your mind. And so after this moment, there was a huge reaction that eventually developed into the war of terror. There was a huge rise in Islamophobia. Americans became afraid of taking planes, of going outside. And so they somewhat became vulnerable to the rest of the world. They hadn't been invaded in a very long time, and having war being waged in the streets really seemed to alter the frame of mind of the citizens of the country. Thus, just like Prometheus, the stealing of the fire and the foreign policies of the US seems to arise some questions, and these are reflected in the novel. And the debate, for example, regarding morality in the novel is immense. Who is right, who is wrong, whose fault is it? Are Americans to blame for the military acts in some parts of the world, or are the terrorists just jealous of the country's advancements, achievements, and pursuit of freedom? Now, then how should the citizens of the country react? There is an evident difference between what the head of the government at the moment, George W. Bush, said in a speech on September the 20th, saying, and I quote, every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. And then the actual reaction of many citizens of the country parading against the war in Iraq. Then there is the question of freedom. Quoting Bush once again in that very same speech, saying, the advance of human freedom, the great achievement of our time and the great hope of every time now depends on us. We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail. So Prometheus gave the fire to humans so that they could prosper and defy the gods, not needing to depend on them, and the result might not have been what he had expected. Now, the question then is, what is the place of the US in all this? Is it a god who has seen their rules being broken, or does it incarnate Prometheus in that they become a martyr of through their pursuit of freedom, and they have been punished for their acts? Now, the last part that I wanted to highlight is that of the philanthropic nature of the myth. Prometheus is often regarded as the great philanthropist, and his devotion and love for humans actually ended up in him being chained to a rock for eternity. And similarly, DeLillo's seems to suggest a significantly philanthropic aspect in this novel. And that is represented in the very same title of the novel. The act of falling, the act of precipitating, and there is change, there is transformation, there is evolution in that very use of the verb. And so the novel says that there is change. The towers stood and they fell. The collapsing of the towers, all the lives that were lost in that event, they won't be given back to us. But us, as humans, Americans, as citizens, we are in constant motion. and constant change. We can learn from our mistakes, we can learn from our attitudes, and this is a moment from which we can become better, we can improve. And I believe that this is the point in which myth and the novel seem to merge together. And so this is the bibliography that I used for this, and that is all. Thank you very much.